Hey now, looks like this little credit business is doing just well for me and helping millions of people nationwide. But don't get it twisted. I still got my ways and boundaries, so watch your step. But it came down to understanding what people need as investors. When I was selling property, I would walk through the neighborhoods with my investors and seek opportunities for them to invest their money the proper way. But sadly, even cashing all these checks and seeing if I can help them find a way through their financial issues, even when it came down to the closing freaking tables. Woo! They still needed assistance with finding great financing to acquire bigger and better properties. And sadly, most of my investors, after many closing deals, they were still trying to figure out if there was a way for them to acquire so much more without hurting their finances and their pockets from down the road. And maybe I was the one to assist them. So I got into looking into some financing for them. Started my own credit business. Yup. Little me. Shit. I started looking into how I can help them build their credit scores to acquire funding for them.
100.
Even sold some of their own cars. It's sad to say, it came down to a lot of checks paid to me. But a lot of people had to readjust their finances just to acquire what they needed. I even talked to billionaires. Billionaires!
Wow.
I'm talking about even this guy right here. Yeah, well, maybe not just this guy right here. Well, maybe this one. This one was also hard to deal with too, cause as you see, he's signing documentation, signed some things over to me. Oh, this one right here, this the billionaire. He was a millionaire, more like, but he was definitely an asshole, not like this one. Well, let's not talk about this picture. I caught this one slipping, but don't get me twisted. I always had a reason to stand up to protect the bigger picture. Welcome to my channel.
Now, let's talk about credit a little bit. What's a good credit score, and how do you keep your credit score high?
Yep. So what's crazy is when they say what's a good credit score, it actually depends on what you're buying. Because, if you want to buy a house, you can get one as low as 580, which you don't want to have that score. But I usually say anything over 700, you're good. You're going to get in a position where you can pretty much get approved at the lowest interest rate, but there won't really be any problems with you where they're like, oh, you have a 680, but guess what? We also need a cosigner. Oh, you have a 620, we need $5,000 extra down. So usually you have a 700, I say you're good. You know what I mean? And one of the ways to keep the high credit score is keep your balances low. That's probably the biggest thing. And like Angela said, is just make sure you pay stuff on time. A lot of people forget, a $25 bill. Like I get a lot of clients like, I forgot to pay this $25 Capital One credit card. Yeah. And that's probably the biggest thing. Well, I have clients that have like a $5,000 payment, but the people that have the $25 payment, they forget. So just put it on auto pay and then just always pay more than what you can. Because the majority of the clients that I have, their credit scores are low because of their debt, which means that the amount of balances they have on their credit cards and in ratio to their credit limits.
So if your limit is $10,000, but it's up to $9,000, that's
right.
Terrible.
That's bad. Yeah. And I always advocate for 10%. A lot of people say 30% credit limit ratio. I always say 10% and under, because you're going to get put in the best position possible to have the highest credit score.
So how do you get your credit score up? Let's say, somebody's out there listening right now and they have a 550 or they have a 600. What's the fastest and quickest way to get their credit score up?
All right, so the fastest thing is, one, you got to look at it. That's the biggest thing. You got to look at your credit score. A lot of people use Credit Karma. I wouldn't advocate for that. I would probably try to get a mortgage report or try a credit report that has all three, because all three reports are something different, which is crazy. I don't know why there's 3 credit bureaus. But look at your credit report, see if there's anything inaccurate, but then also pay everything down. I mean, a lot of people don't have credit. That's why they have a low credit score. Have at least 5 accounts. I would say have at least 5 accounts, whether it's a mortgage, an auto loan, credit cards. Keep your balances down, and that's pretty much it. And if you have those collections like Envy had, pay them before they go.
Collections, you don't want your stuff to go to collections ever.
No, because the thing is, if you have a medical bill, pay $25 a month, and it prevents it from going on your credit report.
Now, let me ask you this. What about if, I forgot what I was about to say. About having too much credit, right? Like, say you have too many credit cards open or too many lines and too many accounts.
Yep.
Does that negatively affect you?
It depends. It's crazy because a lot of the answers and questions depends. If you're going for a mortgage, the lender might tell you to close it. If you're going for a car, they don't care. But if you do have like 20 credit cards, as long as those balances are low, the lender's normally not going to care as long as they're not maxed out. Now, when you're maxed out on those credit cards, then yeah, they're going to care.
Now, what about trade lines? I see a lot of people say, you get a trade line and that gets your credit up high.
Right.
Are trade lines legal?
No. So here's why.
I never had one. Good question. Ever had one?
Good question.
So here's why. Call your credit card company up and say, hey, I'm gonna sell my account to somebody else for $1,000. Can I do that? Is that in the agreement? And more than likely, they're not gonna say yes, right? There's nowhere that it's gonna be legal, and they're actually cracking down. Like the Federal Trade Commission actually just sued somebody for doing that exact same thing. It was like $6.1 million lawsuit. So it's not legal. So there's other ways of building credit. Maybe if you want to add your daughter or your son, yeah, that's fine. Add authorized user, but don't buy it because it's not legal to add somebody to a credit card that you have no relationship with.